I'm so excited to be speaking today with Sigrid Nunes, who is the author of What Are You Going Through, which I'm so in love with this book, and previously an equally, well, differently gorgeous book, The Friend, for which she won the National Book Award. Thank you so much for speaking to me. You connect in this book, in What Are You Going Through, this concept of suicide with sort of environmental devastation. How do you think that sort of individual experience relates to the larger phenomenon of the environment?
Well, I think the larger phenomenon that you're talking about, one of the great dangers about it is that it's so huge and so terrible as to be unassimilable. It's just asking a lot of people to understand what that would mean. The death of the planet, the end of the species, the extinction of all these other species, or if you want to put it this way, this void where the future should be. The mind doesn't take it in. So the idea is that, on a small scale, on an individual scale, someone dying, losing someone, the end of a life, the end of a relationship with somebody, that's something that you can understand, and it can be deeply painful. And in a sense, there's the idea that I think I'm quoting Nabokov here, that the world dies with the individual. That's a way that we're able to deal with grief and loss and death. But I really don't know that we can deal with this enormous issue. We get through life in all kinds of ways by using denial, and denial can be really helpful. If you think, oh, that's impossible, I'll never be able to do that, anyone would say so, but then you say, you have a certain amount of denial, and then you just keep at it, and then you actually accomplish it. So I think that denial is a very human response to things, and it's very hard for people to not resort to that right now. I feel that I resort to it every day, in a sense.
Right. Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's sort of darkly comedic about the way you relate to meditation and mindfulness and therapy even. I love that it's just it is actually a time where anxiety feels like it could be spurring us to action, and it's not a time to get rid of the anxiety. It's right. A time to embrace the anxiety, which I love, and I feel like not enough people are talking about. Like you're saying, this sort of tendency toward denying is and part of that is making ourselves feel calm in spite of an impending disaster. Both books, it's a continued sort of theme is friendship, and kind of a very particular favor that you are asked to do for a friend, and a very particular type of friendship too. It's not like the closest friendship in your life. Why examine those stories? Why is that subject so rich for you?
Well, as I've gotten older, I've become less interested in writing about romantic relationships and more interested in friendship. And with What Are You Going Through, it was again, it was invented, just as in The Friend, nobody left me a great big dog. I wish. You see, that's what it really was. That was a fantasy. I was able to fulfill a fantasy by writing a story. I wish somebody would leave me an enormous, beautiful, wonderful, loving Great Dane. And in What Are You Going Through, again, I had various things that I was thinking about, but I did think about this, what if somebody asked you this amazing thing, I have a terminal illness, and I have procured some euthanasia drugs, and I'm not asking you to give me the drugs, but I do need a companion for the last part of my life where I go and take care of things? Will you be with me? And I thought, well, what if somebody said, what would you say? And what would that be like? And that's what I wanted to think about. And I suppose one of the reasons why I wanted to think about it is connected again with getting older. You know, it's a very natural thing as you get older to find yourself thinking a lot about aging and death. And this is a time when your grandparents are certainly gone. Now your parents are gone or very aged. And, you know, and therefore probably quite ill or fragile. And then you start thinking about, oh, I'm at that point where unless I go first, I'm going to lose my friends. And what is that going to be like? And how will I get through that?
I also love that you have so many false memories or kind of mistakes that are made. The friends, obviously, the memory of them in school together, the daughter and the mother's false memories of the story with the boyfriend, and the painting that is kind of a false story. What were those kinds of mistakes indicative of for you? Why did you want them to be so kind of like a recurring theme?
Well, because they strike me as very much a part of real life. You know, it's kind of shocking how often that does happen, that you have a really strong memory of how it happened. I mean, you really, you know, you don't even you don't even have any idea that it might be wrong. It's just what you remember. And then there's a family dinner and you start talking about it and your mother says, you weren't even there, you know. And the idea is you'd heard it so many times. I said, no, I remember I was wearing a red dress, I was sitting over there. And you know, memory is really unreliable. So but the kinds of things, you know, they just seem to come up all the time, where you realize people will say, because they've read something somewhere, they've heard something, and then they repeat it, and you realize they couldn't possibly remember that. They're remembering what somebody else remembered, but it's
Right.
still very real. And this is like, you know, this is what makes people, they say, well, then what is reality? What is real? What can I rely on? What do I, you know, what really did happen in the past?
You talk so much about or you write so much about the sort of insufficiency of language and the hollowness of language and kind of this despair around language, and even toward the end where language isn't really necessary at the end. And but yet you also find so much hope in language and joy. I mean, some of the word association and play kind of moments of, you know, suffer and succotash, or these little beautiful things that come in that just make you smile while you're reading, despite obviously very serious material. What's the kind of balance for you between that despair and hope in language?
Well, I think it's something that a writer in particular knows, um, because writing is extremely frustrating. And then you wonder, well, why is that? You know, there you are, you're trying to tell your story or whatever. You might even just be trying to send an email. And you wonder, well, this is my native tongue, and the words are just not coming. I mean, what I'm trying to say, I know what I want to say. Why is this so difficult? It seems so strange. And then, you know, when you're writing is so hard. You're always wondering, why is it so hard? But also you discover that, why is it for the most important things, the deepest emotions, the times when you most need language to come to your aid, that it doesn't work. So I mean, you know, so that we have these you know, what everybody repeats in these certain situations: I'm sorry for your loss. Who who takes comfort from that statement anymore? It just, I mean, you take comfort from people helping you, you know, something's happened and then they show up at the door with a casserole, you know, that's lovely. And people do that all the time. But people don't seem to know, to be able to come up with comforting, with the right words. It's always things like, I'm sorry for your loss, and let me know if I can do anything. And, you know, but it's strange that something so important would leave us so without language as an adequate tool. And yet I think if you're writing, it's different. You know, writing is basically thinking. You're writing, you have to think, you have to figure things out. And by doing that, and by really caring about every word and really thinking about it, you can talk about things in a way that I believe is meaningful, or as meaningful as we can get.
Well, thank you so much for all that. It's really such a luxury to get to talk to you.
It's been a wonderful conversation. I'm really grateful to you, and I really enjoyed this.